Right, welcome back to Football Unscripted. This is our second episode, our second time doing this. And we're going to start with, what we're going to start with?
Ooh, another contentious. Let's start with how people have changed their styles of play. How football now is supposedly going more direct, especially in the Premier League. Long throws, free kicks, percentage football, dare I say. What's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, we've had so many years of, possession-based, playing out for the back, which I still think lots of teams are still doing. Even down into grassroots, they want to do it. I think it's nice to see. I think it's good. It's like a revelation. I don't know why it's a revelation that all of a sudden we're going direct. I thought that's what England was built on, English football was built on, but starting to kick off, rolling back and then kicking it as far as the corner flag and getting teams up there quickly. It's like it's a brand new thing. Whereas actually it's been happening for years. It's only over the last 5-10 years where I'm going to say it again, since probably Pep's come into the game, where we've got to play out through the thirds, out from the back, playing our own 18-yard boxes and stuff. And then also, the long throw. I mean, I played with Rory Delap when we was at Carlisle, and he was the master of the long throw. I think him and Andy Legg were like ridiculous.
And I played with Andy at Notts.
I think they were like holding records at the time of the long throw, but all of a sudden that's come back in. I almost feel sorry for teams who don't have a player who can take a long throw.
Yeah, look, I think it's football's natural evolution. I think with everybody who's doing the same thing, the whole coaching infrastructure of English football became where you had to play out from the back. And the thing about football is it's all about winning. And eventually people are going to get wise to it that everybody is going to try and start the game in the same way. So I just think I've been talking about this for 18 months, 2 years of the evolution of football, is that if everyone's doing the same thing, and let's be honest, 18 months ago, watching Premiership football for me was like watching paint dry. Seeing two centre halves have the highest possession in any team, I don't want to see that. I personally want to see centre forwards score goals. I want to see wingers go past people. I want to see midfielders with flair that aren't scared of putting a long pass in there. This is what I want to watch. But I just think the evolution of football is that's the coaching. We'll both know now, but the coaching manual has been ripped up and restarted again now because people go, well, if you're going to play out from the back, we're going to press you really high. And so now the evolution is, well, if you're going to press us really high, we're going to hit a direct ball into space, or do we say into a big nine, etc. So,
but I think that's good coaching. I do. I think it's good coaching that if you can get that into your players and let them make the decision of when to play long, when to play short, you're going to create better players. I think it's when they have to do certain things, have to play out from the back, have to go long, is where it falls down. Because if players don't recognise and understand when to do it, then again, it's just going to be exactly the same as when it was, possession-based football. There's going to be loads and loads of mistakes, loads and loads of turnover in possession. 100% that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Players have to recognise when to do it. I think I said on the last one, everybody wants to be like Pep. We talked about, Man City and how they play out the back. But and I said it then, Edison always, when it was right, would go direct to Aguero, go direct to Haaland, because it was the ball and he put them through clean one-on-one. So as great as it is, he's also gave them that ownership, I think, to choose when to do it and when not to. Look, sometimes it's going to break down. 100%. It's always going to break down at some stage. But if they're making the decisions, ultimately is what you want your players to be doing. I'm not a big fan of standing on the sideline and shouting and screaming. I think I would do all my work in the week and then have to trust my players.
Yeah.
But you see managers running up. I think sometimes managers do that for themselves, to feel like they're a part of the game. And
I'll be honest, that was me, Chris, as a manager. I did a lot of coaching from the sideline, Mainly in my early days in non-league football. The reason why that is in terms of, and when you say trusting players, is that you sometimes work with players in sort of non-league that don't understand the concepts of in possession, out possession, and that transition. But going back to the style of play now, it's amazing now that most of the big clubs have got long throw specialists, set piece specialists. If you look at Arsenal now, seem to be revolutionising the game in terms of corners. No one can say that they're failing because I think they're pretty effective on it. And to be honest, I've watched a lot of the football, the top flight football of lately, and it's quite refreshing. And it's more open. I watched the Newcastle Arsenal game, and it was lovely to see both teams going really at each other. We listened to pundits and stuff like that. I can remember going back to the Manchester derby
because it went. So I was going to say it was great. That game because it went to the last minute, and you still didn't know what was going to happen. I wanted Arsenal to win. I'm not an Arsenal fan. I just like Arsenal. I always have done. Yeah. Probably because I played for Middlesbrough. I don't want Newcastle to win, but it's not really like that, honest. But I think it was I think you're right. I think it was an absolute fantastic game of football all the way through, which was refreshing.
Yeah, but then going back to, I can remember Roy Keane talking about after the Manchester derby, and. He mentioned basics about, two teams cancelling each other out. And you go, this is a local derby, really. That should be blood, guts and thunder, and there should be tackles flying in. The football that we were probably, we played in and we're accustomed to is, I think, and I don't want to, I'm not sounding, the football nowadays is poor. It's not. There's just a different... there's different sort of ethics and morals involved in it, but I just like to see people having a right good go. I like to see wingers. How many times now, while in the last 18 months, 3 years, does a winger get time and space? He fronts the fullback up, chops inside and plays it inside. Now, as a football fan, and we're all football fans, and this will go out to a lot of football fans, is that just those one key moment in a game where you've got one-on-one. I've always encouraged my players to go and have a good go and try and create an assist or try and get a shot on target, because I think that's what football's about. Football became, for me, especially watching the Premier League, it became boring, mundane. And like I say, who wants to watch a centre half pass it to the goalkeeper, pass it to the centre back, pass it to the goalkeeper, pass it to the centre back, and you go and pay with the prices nowadays? Wow, it absolutely bored the living daylights out of me, and I stopped watching it. I'd rather go and watch. I used to go and watch a non-league game or lower league game because of that drug of proper football.
No, I know what you mean. We had it's become noisy in our house. If you came to our house, honestly, the football's on, but if you looked at me, my wife, my son, we're probably all on phones or iPads or something because the game's boring. So we're doing something else and look up when something exciting happens.
Exactly. Whereas, and look, it's the biggest business on the planet, isn't it? Watching football.
But the Arsenal-Newcastle game the other day, we weren't on those phones. We weren't on the iPads. We watched the game because you couldn't take your eyes off it. Yeah. I think one of the things that I really enjoyed about it was a little bit of niggle in there, which was great. You've got Gabriel and Voldemade, or however you pronounce his name, the new centre forward. There was a bit of an elbow, there was a bit of pushing and shoving. They wouldn't shake hands after the referees had it going. I love that, because as a centre forward, me and centre halves don't get on. It's amazing we're still sat here as mates. But me and centre halves never got on. But that's who you're up against. It was a battle. Don't get me wrong. I never fell out with anybody after 90 minutes. But for those 90 minutes, it was a war. It was a battle. It was me against them.
Well, it was success, wasn't it?
Yeah, especially being one striker against two centre halves. If a centre forward was
dominating me and scoring goals, then I was having a bad game. That was as simple as that. That's how they're the basics of growing up in the game. Let's go back to the basics. We as a fullback in the early days, I was taught the basics very well. And when we're talking about the game now, without going too far off on a tangent, when you look at the game now, everybody is more or less coached the same way. And like you said, you're taking decision making away from players. we had more of a freedom, I think, to play short, to play long, to give you that freedom of expression. And I think that's when we look at what I think how the game's developed over the last probably 10 years. I think that's evolved into the coaching now. Is that as we've seen, with some of the courses, and everybody just wants to start with, this is you playing out from the back. But to get people to give them a freedom, not just as a player now, but as a coach, to say, well, look, problem solved now. You're going to try and play it from the back. Someone presses you, I don't know, 2 centre forwards, and you've got a high line 10 that wants to come and press you again. What are you going to do? I think some coaches now go, well, I know that I need to go to my own centre forward, but I didn't do it because people might call me. And I go, this is the offset of where it is.
I think it's a fear with players. It's a fear of giving the ball away.
Yeah.
So it's a fear of, getting shouted at by your players. Even more so, it's a fear of getting shouted at by the coach.
Yeah.
Because that's not how the coach wants to play. And that's where I think, where we talk about giving them some ownership, but they also got to take the responsibility. When it works, great, fantastic, we're all happy, 5-5s all round. But what happens when it doesn't work? Do they hold their hands up in the dressing room at half time and go, sorry lads, that's my fault. Sorry ladies, it's my fault. Yeah. Do they do that, or do they sit there and go, it wasn't my fault? And I've played with players that have done that, head down, me. I played the ball. You should have been on it. Go, whoa, hold on a minute. I come short, you played in long. So is it an understanding because we don't do it enough? Or is it, no, manager says, I have to put it in, you've got to run in those channels. Yeah. Now, if it's that, then as a striker, I go, okay, I'll just run in the channels all the time. But when teams drop off and there's no space in the channels, I can't keep running into channels, so there has to be something else. But if I have the decision to come short or go long, to have it into feet, chest, or to have it in front of me, now I'm causing problems for centre halves. Or if I'm a winger, I'm causing problems for wingers. I watched Man City Burnley. I only watched the highlights, but I watched Doku. I think was actually his best performance in a Man City shirt against Kyle Walker, one of the quickest fullbacks in the Premier League. Yeah. Still, even though he's getting on a little bit, I'd still say
he's still sharp, isn't he?
I thought he tortured him. I thought he absolutely tortured him because he came inside, he went outside. He went outside, he came inside. But what made it better was he had an end product.
Yeah.
Because he had license to go inside or outside and then do something with it. Whereas I think before, and it's probably similar to when Ronaldo first went to Man United, he just wanted to show how many skills and tricks he's got.
Yeah.
Beat the player, deliver. I've played with players like this. The most frustrating thing as a striker, when you make your run and you've got past the centre half to go near post, and then your wide player chops back onto his other foot, either plays it back or then wants to. I played with a player, and I won't mention any names. Brilliant player, went on to have a fantastic career. But he used to do that. He used to chop 3 times on the fullback. Yeah. I made 3 runs, and the manager, and I got frustrated. Manager says, you can tell you're getting frustrated. But the time you don't make that run is the time the ball comes, key. And then you get moaned at. So I go, okay. So I go in, I come out, I go in, I come out, I go, and so on. And it just kept going like that for ages. Sometimes he delivered, sometimes he's got to chop and show the world how great he was at dribbling. And it was the most frustrating thing. And I think and I know I've gone off on the tangent a little bit, but I think someone like Doku again will be a very, very exciting player if he finishes with an end product. Now I think he's got a little bit more license to get at players, and it makes the game more exciting.
It gives coaches something to work on, just the basics again. But going on to that, we go on to the managers. It's very interesting that in the news over the last sort of year, 6 months to a year, where people of the boy at Southampton that's now at Rangers, that's going through the same scenario, where he's gotten the press with saying, "So this is my ethics, this is my principles, and I'm going to stick by it." What's your thoughts on if? And it was all about playing out from the back. And I watched Southampton a few times, and when he was in charge, and as a coach, we both experienced lads in the game. You look at that and you go, that is not working.
No.
The amount of time Southampton got caught or giving the ball away inside their own defensive third and conceding goals, I go, okay. I think as a coach, sometimes you've got to have a little bit of a mindset of right, okay, because football, and I'm anyone I could argue with anybody on this. Football is about winning football matches. But he stuck to his. He said basically, and the press were saying in a nutshell that Southampton would love to keep him, but they want him to evolve a little bit and change his style of play. He said no, which then sort of got him the sack.
Yeah.
He seems to be going through the same.
He's doing the same
process
at
Rangers now.
He'll probably get the sack at Rangers, and I think the hardest thing in football is if you don't have the personnel to play how you want to play, you have to change. And I think that, and again, I would argue with anybody on that. Sometimes you have to change because you don't have the personnel. I think that.
But what is it, Chris? Though, is it too much confidence, bordering on arrogance?
I think there's a little bit of that. This is my method. This will work.
Yeah.
Because there are managers out there. Jose Mourinho's got a blueprint for winning the Premier League. He has a big, strong, tall players in there. They go and bash everybody, sit in the low block when they can, go and get the ball direct when they have to. And and he won the Premier League 3 times off the back of it. He has a blueprint for winning it.
Yeah.
Pep's got a blueprint for winning it. What's he won it like 6 times? Possession-based football and how they do it and stuff like that. And I think some managers will go, oh, okay, I can do that. But what they don't see is that Jose goes out and buys the players that will fit his system and play how he wants them to play. Yeah. Pep will go out. He had Joe Hart, great goalkeeper, but not great with his feet. Yeah. Got rid straight away. Gave him a little chance. Yeah. Didn't really work out. Went, see you later. Thanks for all your service. Bosh, off he went. Brought in, I can't remember the goalkeeper they brought in. He didn't have the best of games. Few games. Good with his feet, but wasn't having a good time. Got rid of him, got Edison in. Brutal. Yeah, absolutely brutal. Yeah. But those players fit how they want to play the game. And you can be confident as much as you want. But if you're putting square pegs in round holes, it isn't going to work. And I look at, we look at Man United, if you like, and Ruben Amorim at the minute. He wants to stick with how he wants to play football. Yeah. I listened to Michael Richards the other day, and he did a bit of analysis on Match of the Day on how rigid that system is and how he changed and how De Ligt started at right back, went to centre half, stayed at centre half, but then Yoro came in at right back, then Yoro went to left back. Yoro probably played in left midfield at some stage in that. Everybody sort of rotated around, but the system stayed the same. And they still lost. And they probably changed it about 3 times in 15 minutes, I think they said. Yeah. And I just think you haven't got the players to fit in the system that you want to play. So you have to change. Yeah. So it's simple. I think it's as simple as that. When I was down at Northampton, I was part of an interview with the manager there a few years ago, and he said, which kind of stuck with me, to be fair, and I had to figure it out when he first said it. He said, if you can't change players, change players. And I went, huh? And then I went, oh, yeah, I get it. Because again, he had a system that he wanted to play. Yeah. The system that wasn't working because of the players. And he worked with the players, but it still wasn't working. Yeah. So he couldn't change them to adapt to the way he wanted to play. But it was Northampton at the end of the day. Not Man City. They couldn't just get rid of, 5, 6, 7, 8 players and bring in 5, 6, 7, 8 more quality players. He hadn't got the money to do that. But I knew what he was saying. But then I looked at it and I go, but if you can't change them and you can't bring in new players, then you've got to do something. Yeah, I mean, ultimately he got fired a while down the line, but he got fired eventually. But you go, is it, again, like you say, is it confidence that if you can get it right, it will work? Or is it arrogance?
I'll just talk to the point. I find it arrogant. I find it. I fear for this next generation of head coaches, managers. That might sound a bit harsh, but I was listening to TalkSport and the ex-chairman at Crystal Palace. I think he speaks well about football, and he speaks from it from different angles. But your job ultimately, when you take a job on, is to win as many football matches as you can. I agreed with him when he said, if you have a philosophy, a style, I think the shrewd managers win some football matches initially, and then implement their strategy or their.
Well, it's never a short term project, is it? Unless they're battling relegation.
But football management is now. I don't think now. I don't think now you get any time. I think that football manager. Well, look, football is ruthless. But the last club I was at, I took them to the playoff final, and then 5 games into the next season, you're out of a job. So, and that's that was at National League North level. You go into the Football League now, where millions of pounds are being spent. And this is just a business now. This isn't a sport anymore. This is a business, and that pains me to say it, because this is all we've done all our lives. But as a head coach, manager coming into a football club now, you don't get time to find your feet. You've got to start winning football matches straight away. And I think there's a trend now, because everyone wants to play the same way, that we're not getting free thinking. Managers that maybe upset the apple cart. If we've just talked about now that a trend's changing. Where does that leave Sam Allardyce? Where does that leave Tony Pulis? Where does that leave? I mean, you look at some. I'll go through some of the situations now where it looks crazy. But West Ham United have just changed the manager again. When David Moyes was in charge, he took them to Europe. Yeah. He took them up into the highest position in the league. And because of so-called, he wasn't playing the game the right way, fan pressure. Look, they pays the money, so they gets the choice. But he gets moved on to a out of the football club. People talk about Sam Allardyce.
That was a strange decision.
He's the man's been absolutely battered throughout his career.
He's been successful though.
I'll be honest with you.
He wins games of football.
The people that have been around him, you talk to people that have been around him, and he was a pioneer in terms of diet, in terms of stats, in terms of all the kind of stuff that maybe Arsene Wenger got all the credit for. Sam was really ahead of his time. And you look at people like, you look at one of the most, I played under him, Neil Warnock at Notts County now. Probably one of the most successful managers outside the Premier League, and was not renowned for playing the most attractive football, but has had an unbelievable career. And I will say to any young man that wants a career in football management or head coach, go and speak to somebody like Neil. Go and speak to somebody like Tony Pulis. Go and speak to someone like Sam Allardyce, and get a real diverse perspective of what the job entails. Just to go in and try and please people by your ethics and morals and trying to play good football isn't going to keep you in a job, because as we both know, it's a tough old business. It's a
difficult business. It's not for the faint-hearted. That's for sure.
But going back to Amarin,
you've done well not to go grey. People say.
I get battered for it now. But it's a business that consumes you. So 20 years of my life, I didn't realise I'd spent 20 years in it. The journey that I travelled was amazing, but the learning curve I went through, especially in the early stages, where probably I tried to pacify people.
I think that's probably the thing that a lot of people will do.
Yeah,
because everybody wants to be, and I'm not saying this is I'm not saying this is you, but everybody wants to be liked.
Yeah,
everybody wants to be liked by the fans. You all want pats on the back. Everybody wants to be liked by the chairman and the owners. And
my first job was,
everybody wants to pick the paper up and go, "Oh, he was fantastic." And the team played really well, and you can tell that the managers
played fantastic football. And look, it
sounds like FIFA.
Yeah, well, it's Roy the Rovers kind of stuff. The harsh realities of football is you don't win enough football matches, you get the sack.
Yeah,
and that is the brutal thing.
This is a surprise. Going back to Ruben Amorim, and there's been lots of discussion over this. He's 1 point further on than Potter. Potter had 33 points.
Yeah,
got sacked. Amorim's got 34. Still in the job. Does anything look like it's changing? No.
No.
Does the next game look the same? Yes. and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Is he still going to? He's being allowed to continue. You know, we don't want people to lose their jobs, but ultimately, like you say, if they're not winning football matches, and especially at a club like Man United,
it's the biggest club, if not the one. It's one of the biggest clubs in the world, if not the biggest. Yeah.
So for him, and I think I can't remember. It might have been Gary Neville. It might have been somebody else that said it the other day, that they think that because the owners have come in and, you know, changed so much, and it's not worked, that they don't want to be seen as failures by getting rid of the manager that they wanted in the first place. You know, and I think that might be it. So he might get a bit more grace, but he's got to start picking up results. How does he pick up results? I don't know, because I look at, you know, even the teams coming up where you normally would go in your own head, you go, these are wins.
It's not happening anymore.
And they're not happening, you know, and we can talk about that in a moment. But those teams coming up, they're different. They're like built differently. It's like, oh my days, Sunderland were third in the league. And I know it's early days, 9 games in or whatever it is, but third in the league. They're normally like, you know, maybe third from bottom or at the bottom 9 points adrift of everybody else. But they've come up differently. And now you've got a Man United that, you know, they might go to a Burnley and you go, oh, Man U should win this one.
Well, Man United going to Brentford, you know, let's be honest. Man U going to Brentford, you would go, years ago, you'd have gone 3 points.
I'd have backed Man United all day long. I looked at it the other day. My lad does the Super Six and stuff. And I go, you know, and he goes, oh, you know, Brentford Man U. I don't think Brentford Man U was on it, but if he'd have gone Brentford Man U, I'd have gone, you've got to go Man U.
Yeah.
How do you go against one of the biggest clubs in the world? It's like Burnley Man City, and I know Man City won 5-1, but it was 1-1 for quite a while.
Yeah.
Who puts a draw? Who puts a 1-1 draw going up to near half time? And you go, you wouldn't do it. You go, oh, Man City. You go, Arsenal. Even Tottenham. And I know Tottenham do Tottenham things at times in the game, but you go, you always.
Yeah.
I mean, I think.
You'd always back, wouldn't you?
I think Chelsea at home to Brighton. And he went, what do you think? And he'd already picked his scoreline. And I went, I'll tell you now, Brighton will win that game. And he went, no chance. Because you don't want to go against the big clubs. Brighton won the game.
It's becoming more even. But just going back to Amarin, is that I'll ask you the question. If you was in that role now, would you stick or twist? So he knows he's under pressure. Is the sign of a good coach somebody that then goes back to the drawing board, looks at his team and goes, I need to get results now, basically because I'm at one of the biggest club in the world, and I'm now going to make a big change, and that's a sign of a good coach that can go in and he can turn things around by looking at a different. I don't think the personality.
I'll say
can be
now,
different.
to answer your question, he's got a twist. He's got to find round pegs, round holes.
Yeah.
And if that means dropping some of the bigger players, quote unquote.
Would you change your system now? Because he seems 100%. He seems to be.
I would probably go. This whole week for me, and I'm never saying that players are unfit because they shouldn't be unfit at this level. But I watched the last Man U game. It was probably Man U Brentford. Players walking around.
Yeah.
That's for me is unacceptable. It's a non-negotiable. Run around. You know, if you're having a bad game, if you've had a couple of bad touches, if something, you know, if your mind's not on it for 2 minutes because you're having a bit of a nightmare, nothing ever stops you from running around unless you're injured.
Well, the game's built around running, isn't it?
So
I'll be honest, the first time I went, every time I've had a job in the past, when you always get a job when another manager's got the sack and you go in, the first thing I look at is fitness levels of the team.
But this is what I do with Matt and you know, and this is not me going into Man United, but for Ruben Amorim, someone like him, and I know he wants to play this certain way, but he has to change, and he has to change something within the team. And for me, they need more energy, they need more desire, they need more passion. They want to run around. You want people throwing themselves in front of balls. Like I watched Sunderland Forest the other day, and it was ultimately Forest for most of the game, even though they still lost it. But I watched Sunderland, they're throwing their face in front of the ball.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember Mick Walker coming down doing a training session. I think we was at City Boys.
Yeah.
At the time, Mick Walker come down his training session, had his tight tracksuit bottoms on. And it just really stuck in me. It's like, you've got to throw yourself at the ball. And he did this like spread eagle thing. And you think it's funny at the time, but he's absolutely he was absolutely 100% right that you go, defending is an art. Defending should be as important to strikers as scoring goals. So stopping goals should be as important to strikers as stopping goals.
Chris, I'll tell you a story on that. I'll tell you a story. This is going to make you laugh. We're talking about Mick Walker, who to be fair, was one of the, if not the best coaches I worked under. But we went, it was in the U team, and we played somewhere like Port Vale on the Saturday. And obviously we'd got beat by, there was a ricochet and stuff like that, and the lad had blasted it in. On Monday, he had us in, and on Ironmonger Road, the old rubber surface in there. We gets round there. Mick told the back four to strip off down to the jocks, so that was down to your pants. You remember the big painted goal on the back of the wall? He got all the rest of the squad, and I don't know how many there was in there. There's probably about 30 of us. But he took me, I think it was Rich Walker, might have been Michael Johnson, James Walker. We're talking like lads who went on to have really, really good. And all we had to do in our jock, so everything else was basically naked apart from you. But the lads had to shoot at the goal, which was a brick wall with a painted goal around it, and we had to stop the ball from hitting the wall in any way possible. And I'll be honest with you, I came home and I had more mitre signs, the old mitre balls. I had more mitre signs on my stomach, on my legs, and stuff like that. But you know what happens? And people used to look at Mick at some of his methods, and I was lucky enough to work with Howard. He was there. Dick Bate, the great Dick Bate, was in and around Notts County at the time. These are the people that not just coached when you're in possession, they show the fundamentals of being a good defender. I know I'm probably going off a tangent now, but that, those little things create a mindset in a youth. And you look now in coaching, if you did something like that, probably...
You get the sack.
Oh,
you wouldn't be dropping down to your jocks, I was sure, but you would.
But stopping that, you would class it. But
even doing a session, not stripping down, but doing a session where you're ultimately kicking balls at the goal, ultimately kicking balls at the players, you couldn't do it.
Yeah,
you can't even head the ball now.
And that's what I'm saying. Are we setting people up to fail there? But going back to hammering, the first thing I would do, and I've done this when I've gone into football clubs in the past, is that you look at your personnel first and foremost. You just summed it up brilliantly. You went round pegs in round holes. So he's playing this 3-4-3, set kind of like a fluidy formation. I don't think he's got any legs in midfield.
No.
You look at the two midfielders. I think the Portuguese boy Bruno is an unbelievably gifted footballer. But I look at him and I go, out of possession, his strength is not going to get the ball back.
No.
And the thing about football is, you've got to be able to run now.
Sometimes you just need runners.
Yeah.
Sometimes you literally just need runners. I've played with people and I've coached people. Even when I did, even when we did the England stuff, we had players that could run, but ultimately knew their role. They ran around, they won the ball, and then they gave it. As harsh as this sounds, they gave it to somebody that could play. Someone with a bit of talent, someone that could ping a 50, 60-yard ball.
The great
and put
Brian
it
Clough used to do it. I mean, you always used to have somebody, people like John McGovern, not to a lesser extent, Martin O'Neill, those kind of people. If you look at his formula, he always had someone that go and get the ball back. You look at it's very similar now when you look at the Kantés that they come into this world. I worked with Ryan Yates at Forest, and the first thing I recognised about him, I can remember the day that Forest invited me down to have a look at him. It was against Crystal Palace, and there was the U team, the 23s at that stage was littered with fantastic footballers. But what stood out was this powerhouse in midfield, and against him was Ledley, who was the captain at Crystal Palace at the time, and Kabaye, who went on to captain France in the World Cup, did he, or something like that. And he smashed them both. Honestly, he got around. I took him to Barrow with me, and you just saw the desire, application, professionalism in this boy, and this boy's going to go places. But going back to Manchester United, we don't want to go off a tangent. We can talk about that next week, can't we? But Manchester United, I just think he needs to look at this now and go, do I want to stay at Manchester United? And sometimes I'm going to be very, very... I might get a little bit of sort of feedback from this and a little bit of a kickback, but I'll question whether sometimes managers have just taken a job to get the sack, to get a massive payoff now. Because
I don't think he took the job for that. I think he truly wanted it. I don't think he wanted it as early as he got it. I think he wanted it at the start of the season, not when he got it mid-season. I'd say that.
What I'm trying to say is that this is a business now. So So when
he might be looking for a way out.
People talk about longevity in football and loyalty, but I go, loyalty's got to come both ways. So people always ever go at players and managers when they skittle off to the next big payday. But ultimately, that manager or that player, within a period of 5 days, could be out of work.
Yeah.
So this is probably another contentious discussion for another podcast. But I look at it and I go, any person that I've come across in this game who understands it's all about winning or you lose your job, I think your job is to try and win and to try and find a way to win. And for just to be stuck in that scenario where you go, I'm going to stick with this, for me seems very, very strange. And I can't see it ending well if it stays as it is.
I can't see it lasting much longer if it carries on.
No, and like I say, I don't want to see anybody lose the job. I think from what I hear, he's a fantastic coach. He did a great job at his previous club. Look, let's be honest, he's managing one of the, if not the biggest club in the world. So,
but they've been in decline for years. I think probably one of the best managers they had was in Jose. He says himself that finishing second was probably one of his greatest achievements.
In that sort of era, yeah.
For the squad that he had to finish second, and people look at him like that and they go, well, you've won the Premier League 3 times. They go, yeah, but this was a consistent squad of players that he had, a consistent team that he had that finished second. It wasn't a great team like he had at Chelsea that went on and won the league 3 times. I think it's 3 times. I'm sure it was 3 times. But he says Man U was his greatest achievement coming second.
Yeah. For
a serial winner to say that, I think it's
I'll be honest, I want him to come at Forest. I thought he'd have been a brilliant fit for Forest.
Me too. It's probably the only time that I've actually liked Man United. Which is tough for me to say, and I don't know why. Yeah. I think over the years I've never been a Man United fan, but I actually was interested in Man United when Jose was there, and it was only because of Jose, because I like him. I like it. I like his attitude. I like his arrogance, because it is.
It's a character.
It is.
And look, this is for another podcast, but once again, we're the characters in the game as a player.
We'll save that one
as a manager.
We'll save that one.
But it's.
We'll talk about that one in another one. But
probably a few bits and bobs contentious, and it's Well,
one of the things I did want to talk about, the new playoff format. Okay, I'm not sure how I think about it, how I feel about it, and if you're unsure, it literally goes, they're going to add 2 more teams into the playoffs. Now, if we're looking at the Championship, for example, that's going to go down to 8 places.
Yeah.
So top 2 automatic, 3 and 4 will be automatically in the playoffs, but from 5 down to 8, they're going to be play like an eliminator. So 5th place will play 8th place, 6th place will play 7th. I think if I've got this right, 5th and 6th, because they're the highest placed teams, will have home advantage.
Yeah.
It's just a one-off game. So basically what could happen is you could finish 7th and 8th after a tough season, finish 7th and 8th, eliminate 5 and 6. They're in the semi-finals of the playoff. They could both potentially beat 3rd and 4th. So they're 7th and 8th are in the play. I know it sounds weird, but 7th and 8th could be the final
of the playoffs.
And one of them, possibly 8th place, could win.
Yeah.
And they're in the Premier League. And you go, finishing 8th, is it a good season?
Yeah.
It is now because you're getting in the playoffs. But before you'd be looking to get into at least the top 6 to get a playoff place.
Yeah.
And most teams after that, 7th downwards, would usually look at it and go, season's done, it's finished. You know, you have those I think they're calling them rubber games where people aren't really bothered. They're playing the kids and this. And I know why they're doing it, to try and extend it so they're not having those rubber games. Especially if you've got playoff teams already in the playoff playing those outside where the playoffs are currently, they might not play their strongest players. They'll just put the kids in because they know they've got the semi-finals or something like that. But what I'm thinking in my own head is to go, you could finish 8th in the league, where normally you'd go, it's all right, not great, we didn't win anything, we didn't get promoted, blah, blah, blah. But you could still end up in the Premier League. In, you know.
When you look at that, when you look at 8th in the Championship, I'm looking at what the points tally could be coming into the final 3 or 4 games. So you could be...
I mean, you could finish...
Maybe just above the relegation zone in the Championship.
Yeah, you could finish...
And go on a run of 4 games.
You could finish 3rd on something like, say, 86 points, and you missed out on automatic because they finished with 87.
Yeah.
And 8th place, you could have, I don't know, say you got 60 points, you was miles out of it, for example. But you could still end up getting promoted on sort of 60-something odd point. I know it's a wide gap.
So then with the football club, how do you define success? So you could be, let's say you're a manager in the Championship.
Well, don't get me wrong, if I was a manager and I finished 8th, I'd be over the moon.
No, but
I'd be devastated if we were 3rd.
With 7 games to go, because usually how tight the Championship is in terms of points tally, a bit like the Premier League, you could jump up, you can go 3 games on the bounce, and your whole season looks totally different. But you could be having a season of struggle, just above the relegation zone, have a great end to the season, and then all of a sudden finish in 8th place. And how does that... What I'm saying is that through census points in the season, so I'll give you... Nearly every season in my managerial career, my teams never got off to a good start. So the reason why I was a little bit kind of unhappy with what happened at my last club was that my clubs don't get off to a good start. But I'll give you an example. When I was at Mansfield, after a bit, the Mansfield fans said, well, we're going to start coming in Santa outfits and all the Christmassy stuff in August to hopefully get off to a good start. Because my teams usually got round the bend, come round the bend really, really well after Christmas and finish really strong. So when you say, how do I feel about that? I go, that would be perfect for my
That's
side.
what I mean. If you finish 8th, you're going to be over the moon.
Yeah.
I've played in playoff final, and we lost. It's devastating.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but I think where did we finish? We might have finished 4th or 5th or something like that.
Yeah.
And we had this. We obviously went straight to a 2-leg semi-final because that's going to stay the same. By the way, the 2-leg semi-final. We lost the first leg, 3-1, and we beat them that was at their place, and then we beat them at our place 3-0. So obviously we got to the final. So I like the playoffs in that sense because obviously we were a bit lower down the league rather than top 3 getting automatic promotion. Yeah. So, and it extends the season, and it gives you a chance to get there. I just think that if you're 8th place, you would be over the moon that you've still got a chance.
And you know what? If you look at, I don't know if there's stats on this.
I don't know if it's going ahead. By the way, this is it's all potential. This could happen.
If you look at the playoff psychology, it's a lot to do with psychology. But if there's 2 that get promoted, 1 automatic, like it was in the National League, and then it was 4 down from then. 90, but well, I don't know what the percentage is, but the high percentage of teams that have just missed out on the automatic playoffs, fail in the playoffs because of that drive to get you over the line, and you fail. Usually, you see those teams kind of collapse. So this is what I'm saying about what is based on success. You could have somebody that's been maybe even top of the league for the majority of the season, get to the final 4 or 5 games, have an absolute car crash, and then boom, and.
That I understand.
Thinking about it now,
You've been up there
I think
all
it'll
that
keep the season. I'm hoping it happens. I think it'll keep, especially the Championship, which is, I think, a really competitive league. I enjoy watching it, but I think it keeps that competitive for the fans. I think it keeps it that little bit of spice going right to the final wire, and I think that's what English football should be all about. You know, we both played it. We've both been involved in it. You to motivate yourself as a player, and to motivate players when you've got nothing to play for. You know, most players are just having the flip flops on. You know what I mean? I know that sounds awful, but most players go to motivate themselves, and that's a bit contentious because you know there's still supporters out there that pay the hard-earned money. But we've seen it in the pro game. You'll see it time and time again. To somebody, if they've got nothing to play for, it comes.
There are those rubber, what they call them, rubber duck games or whatever. Rubber games. Basically, we'll just say rubber games. But yeah, and I get that, you know, and I think it will make it more exciting.
Yeah,
because you get the eliminators. Like say the season will extend. I think that'll be really good for football. I just looking at it from sort of, you know, that you could have a
it'd be interesting what people think.
Bang average season and still get promoted. Out the back of it,
it's very Americanized, I think.
Yeah, I always thought I always thought the playoffs were tough on like the third place team.
Yeah,
you know, and I think the worst thing for all the teams in the league is when you win the championship or League One, League Two, when you win it, medals, trophies. When you win the playoffs, medals, trophies, but you actually don't get out for second place.
Yeah.
Which I think is very harsh.
Yeah.
That they'll get medals for winning it. You get medals for playoffs. I've still got my playoff medal, runner up, but I've still got it. But those that finished in second place, well done. Congratulations, you got promoted, which is more important. But when you get to our age, you look back on these and your medals and things like that.
You do. It's you realise how lucky you are, or you were. I mean, I wish I could still play now, if I'm honest, when I go back, but
I'm still trying.
It's probably another story again.
I'm still trying. Hence the
English exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, should we do? Wrap it up for for another week.
I think we've covered quite a lot, especially the subjects we talked about with Amarim and the other things we spoke about, the playoffs, styles of play. I think it's been really, really good.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what people think.
Yeah, we had a few more topics, but obviously we went off on tangent a little bit. But that's what we're all about, to be honest with you. It's not scripted, so we talk about what comes into it.
The thing about it is we don't think we're right. It's some of the topics, as you said, are contentious. This is our opinion. Debate is great. It's what makes the game of football brilliant.
Yeah.
Opinions and that's what it's all about.
I'm looking forward. What I'm looking forward to is when we get a couple of guests in, and we start to talk about, because our opinions are our opinions. But it'd be interesting when we get a few people in from various levels.
Yeah.
Even still talking about maybe some of these same things and just see what they take, especially if they're all in the game.
Yeah.
Or if in lower leagues, how that works out for them and what they think as well, and their thoughts on it. Because even if you're managing in the lower leagues, you don't always agree with it, or the new changes.
I think that's what we're trying to achieve, isn't it? Is it we're not looking at just the Prem. It'll be we're looking at a diverse kind of a diversity of people that played in the pro game, people who played in non-league. Referees, physios.
Oh, referees. Oh, no.
Yeah, well...
Not my favourite people, but not
so
when I was playing.
That'll be an interesting discussion. But like you say, it's about opinions. It's how people see the game in a different way. And obviously that's what motivates us all to travel up and down the country every week watching this game that we love. So...
But it's been, it's been interesting. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you join us. I hope you're enjoying it, and I hope you join us for the next one again. I thought it was fantastic. So if there's any topics that anybody wants us to talk about, feel free to drop them in the comments. Thanks for joining us again. See you on the next one.
See you soon.